Welcome to a brand new episode of Good Sense by Union Assurance, a talk show dedicated to discuss all things related to finances with the objective of improving financial literacy to help Sri Lankans pursue their dreams with a peace of mind. I'm your host, Sachini Kularatna. Today we are confronted with a challenge that impacts millions of individuals and families in Sri Lanka, the spectra of high inflation and its impact on personal debt. And that's why in today's episode, we aim to equip you with strategies, knowledge, and actionable steps to help reduce and manage personal debt in the times of high inflation. To discuss this in detail, we have Lakmal Wijewardane, Assistant Vice President, Credit Risk Management at Nations Trust Bank, joining with us on the show. Welcome to the show, Lakmal.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
What is the impact of inflation on personal debt, and are there specific types of debts that are vulnerable to high inflation?
Yes. So, inflation in most basic terms is the rise of prices of goods and services. It is again a decline in our disposable income. So, when we talk about how it's going to get impact to our personal debt, it depends on what type of debt we have, what type of interest rates are charged on our borrowings, and what type of repayments do we have and what frequency we have. Also, it depends on how we are committed towards our debt. And let's say it might have a favorable impact as well as it can be an unfavorable impact. When we talk on favorable impact, let's say we have debts which are on fixed term or fixed interest rates, that will create a positive impact where you don't get caught in the rising interest rate situations. But on the other hand, if we consider as disadvantages, obviously we know that interest rates are going up and the loans or borrowings can get repriced at a higher interest rate. Then obviously the cost of goods are going high, then our disposable income is getting low, and that might create a stress on our financial status, which might not have enough money to repay our debts. So, the debts that are getting impacted, we can say there might be credit card facilities or your OD facilities which are revolving and which are lines of credit. And if you have lot of large balances in that, those debt can create an impact to our financial situation. And there could be facilities which are getting renewed, and if those can also get impacted because it can get renewed at a higher rate. So, apart from that, there might be situations where you will have structured repayments, and those structured repayment maturities are getting impacted during this situation where we will have to do higher payments, which can again create a stress on our financial situation. So, those kind of facilities obviously will give a stress on your financial situation.
What role does budgeting and financial discipline play in reducing and managing debt?
I would say it's the most important thing, because budgeting will definitely help you managing your debt as well as keeping you committed to your financial situation, which will obviously improve your financial discipline. So, in order to do that, we need to first understand what our income and what our expenditure. So, if we talk about our income, first we need to identify what are our income streams. It might be your salary, it might be your rent income, you might be having certain investments where you get a return. Those things need to be first identified, and also we need to understand on what frequency we are receiving them. That is very much important, so that you can budget according to that. Some income you get it on monthly basis because your salaries are coming in monthly. You know that for sure. Then there are certain income which are coming from investment in different frequencies. Then you need to have a proper understanding when you are going to get those. And there are certain aspects, there are fixed income and there are variable income. So we need to have that understanding of what sort of component is coming as fixed and what sort of component are coming as a variable. Then the most important thing, what's the likelihood of receiving this income? Because unless otherwise we know how sure we are getting that, we won't be able to budget. So for example, your salaries or maybe your rent income might be your fixed income that we are getting every month. Maybe there are certain other variable income sources which are maybe on your sales incentives or maybe your investment income, which can differ. So you need to have an understanding what's the likelihood of receiving that and what sort of amount you are going to receive it. And make sure that for budgeting purposes you account for a reasonable amount. So for this reasonable amount, you might look at how much of income you received in the past. So you can consider an average which is reasonable. Then the other important thing is the expenditure part. So expenditure also similar to that as income, we need to have proper understanding on what are the components in our expenditure. So here also we need to first see what comes as a priority expenditure. Maybe your rentals, maybe your medicine, maybe your transportations. Those needs to be coming on top of your priority list. Then of course you will have your debt obligations. Those will be monthly installment loans, your credit card commitment, then there are other term loan facilities which you need to pay. Those also are very important expenditure and those also needs to be on top of your priority list. Then savings as well as your charitable contributions, those are also important in life as we know. So apart from putting them aside, then you will have the remainder for your other discretionary expenditure. So those are very much important, how you know what are your expenditure and what are the content of your expenditure. Then the most important part, the other part on budgeting is your debt. So your debt also you need to have a proper understanding what's coming into your budget. So it can be your monthly installment loans, then what are the types of lines of credit which are revolving and which are getting due. Those things has to be understood. And another important aspect is what sort of interest rates are being charged on that. Are they on fixed interest rate? Are they on variable interest? This will help you to understand what's your monthly commitment in terms of your financial debt. So having all three, knowledge on all three aspects will help you to plan out how we are going to take it in for the month and how you are going to target, set a target for yourself, how you are going to manage that and have that discipline and be committed to your budget. So this will help you always in reducing your debt because now you have a plan and the way towards to work towards reducing your debt.
So Lakmal, what are some practical steps that we can take to manage debt and create plans to eliminate them?
Yeah. So when we plan to eliminate or reduce our debt, obviously we need to understand that there will be certain sacrifices along the way or certain cut downs of your expenditure. So first thing is that we need to understand, like I earlier said, that the budgeting plan, creating a budgeting plan where we need to understand what are our non-essential or discretionary expenditure which we could maybe cut down or keep it on hold. So that will create leeways for your expenditure. Then the other thing we can think of is look at your debt and understand what are creating high stress on you based on high interest rates. Then we may be able to look at of trying out to consolidate your debt with maybe a lower interest bearing a loan or a financial tool, so that ultimately your net impact towards will be a lesser one. Then also we could think through if they have credit lines available, and if you think that you are not disciplined up to that level, we may be able to cut down those credit lines so that we don't overspend. So apart from that, we may go for more reasonable options of expenditure so that we don't create additional borrowings and which making more stress. For example, like we may be having certain kind of vehicle which is creating a stress on us. We could think about changing it to more affordable one. Or we might be living on rent on a premises which creates additional stress to you. So you may look at an option of shifting to a different location which is not creating additional pressure on your financial position. And also another thing that we could do is, if you are having a stress on your financial situation from your debt, we might consider cashing out your savings also, because there is no point in carrying forward a saving while you having a higher interest bearing financial debt which is creating you more pressure. So based on those things that we discuss, we need to think out what are the things that we can take action early. And these things will be practically helping us to manage our debt and ensuring that our financial stability is maintained.
What are some common mistakes people make when trying to eliminate debt?
So I would say the biggest mistake is not having proper awareness of your debt. Because if you don't know how much of debt, you will obviously getting into trouble. Then I would say not budgeting is also a big problem. Or even though if you budget, if you don't stick to it, that also will create more stress on the overall situation. Then the other thing is trying to borrow again and again while you're on debt for maybe certain projects which are not essential at this point in time. So we need to really understand whether should we borrow at this time based on your need. Is this an important thing or not? That assessment needs to be done by yourself. And another aspect is that when you have this debt, not servicing the minimum requirement will also lead into trouble, because obviously delaying will create into more debt, because there will be financial charges and other servicing requirements that financial institutes charge on you, which again adds back onto your debt. So those common mistakes we need to be more aware, because otherwise unawareness will create more stress on your overall debt.
How can individuals stay focused and motivated on their journey towards becoming debt-free?
Yeah, so as we all know, debt is a burden. It's a psychological pressure. That's no doubt about it. But also it's important to understand that why we borrowed and what makes us come into debt. So, and also the fact that debt is an important tool which we can use if we properly understand how it works and we plan for it. Because as we know nowadays with this inflationary situation, we might not be able to achieve certain aspiration goals of our life if we don't get into debt, because debt is a tool for us to help us reach out in our career or our personal life. So in becoming motivated about this, it's very easy if we really focus on it. So first thing I would say is that you need to visually track your debt repayments. You need to have certain bit of Excel or some tool that you can use to understand what you started with, what you are going to pay in current month, and after that what sort of amount has got reduced from your debt. That builds you motivation, because I have now completed certain amount of debt from my previous situation. Then another thing I would say is you need to definitely get involved your family, because it's all about family and you're getting into debt or maybe getting into certain things because of your family. And it helps if you get them also involved. Maybe you can have a discussion with them and have their proper understanding where you are as a financial group, because a family group is also managing the financial. So your spouse and children also can contribute towards that in terms of your discretionary spending or certain things when you are planning. It always helps so that you can be motivated as a family. And also certain things you can plan out cutting down, and things that you are reducing in your expenditure. When we are discussing among your family, it really helps and you really understand, you have focused towards it.
How can individuals stay motivated and focused on their journey towards becoming debt-free?
Yes. So obviously we know that debt is not an easy thing, and debt is always creating stress on your financial position, as well as it can create a pressure on your psychology as well. So, but it's also important to understand that debt is an important tool which, if used in a proper way, we could reach our goals. So it's very important for us to be motivated in a situation where you carry forward debt. So I think it's important that you visually track how much of debt you are paying off. Then that gives you a relief or a comfort at every month, knowing how much you paid down from what it was. Then the other thing is, it's important for us to involve the family members who are close to you, because they are partners and they are part of your stability, your strength. So getting them involved, having them understand where you are, will definitely help you in the longer way. It helps your mental stress levels. And also it's important that you really understand why you borrowed, why you got into debt, because obviously you borrowed it for a purpose, and obviously you enjoy those benefits in life with your debts. It might be your house, it might be your vehicle, it might be your child's education, where you reach somewhere with that money. So that should be itself be a motivation for you, because you have achieved through that. So finally, it all boils down to how much you are committed towards your debt and how much you plan towards getting it over based on your commitment to your budget and sticking to that commitment. Once you visually track those debt obligation getting reduced, you will have a real relief to that, and you can be motivated and stay focused on your life and your career, or maybe your business, where you ultimately focus towards them and go ahead making your life successful based on reducing your debt.
Thank you for sharing insights and joining with us on the show today.
Thank you, Sachin. It was my pleasure.
Trust our audience has been able to make better informed decisions in terms of managing their finances. Stay tuned with us for another episode of Good Sense by Union Assurance, where we explore more areas in terms of financial literacy which are important for our daily lives.